Hello, this is Jacqueline from Jack Knits, and let's knit together this beautiful fisherman's rib scarf. This stitch is such a beautiful popular stitch because it's so soft and plush and squishy, and it's completely reversible. So it makes for a beautiful scarf or blanket, and I'm going to show you how to do this beautiful stitch along with this really nice selvaged edge here to make a very nice edging for your scarf. So let's get started. So let's take a look at how to do this fisherman's rib scarf. I am using this beautiful Scarfy brand yarn from Lion brand. It's a beautiful yarn that just changes color from this beautiful aqua to the gray. Thought that'd make a beautiful scarf. I am using a size 8 needle. I am using a really long circular needle only because that's the only size 8 one I had available, but you can use any flat or circular number 8 needle for this. And I wanted to show you a couple things with this scarf. First, how to do this fisherman's rib stitch, but I also wanted to show you how to do a really beautiful, nice, clean edge for this scarf. You can see that you don't have any funny salvaged edge. It's nice wrapped around ribbing. So I want to show you how to do that because I think it makes a huge difference on the finished product for a scarf like this with the fisherman's rib. So I casted on an odd number of stitches and then I added 6 because we're actually going to do, for this beautiful edge, 3 selvage stitches on each side of the row. So what you didn't see me do here is I casted on 31 stitches, which was 25 stitches plus 6 for my salvaged edge. And then I did 1 row of a setup row, and that setup row is going to look like this. And I'm sorry I'm not going to show it to you, but it's fairly simple. So the setup row is this. You're going to want to knit the first stitch, then slip 1 with a yarn in back, and then knit 1. And then the rest of the row outside of the last 3 stitches is going to be just a purl 1, knit 1, repeat. So purl 1, knit 1, repeated to the last 3 stitches, which will then be a knit 1, slip 1 purlwise with a yarn in front, and then knit 1. So that I have up on the instructions above here, but that is your first row for setup. Then we're going to go to a 2-row repeat where it's fairly simple to follow. So here's the actual pattern. This is a fisherman's rib pattern with this beautiful salvaged edge. So row 1, and you're going to start out with a slip 1 with a yarn in front because the first stitch here has a little purl bump. So for the salvage edges, every stitch that is a purl stitch, you're going to slip with the yarn in front. So we're going to slip that first stitch, put the yarn in the back because the next stitch is not a purl bump, it's a knit stitch. We're going to knit that stitch. Then here's another purl bump. We're going to bring the yarn to the front and slip that stitch. Okay, so that's our 3 stitch that we're going to do at the beginning of the round. Now let's get into the fisherman's rib stitch. So this very first stitch, you can see I've got the nice knit V's here. So when you come across the stitch with the V's, we're going to knit 1 below. So let me show you how to do that. Instead of knitting in this top stitch here, we're going to knit in the stitch below. See that little gap there? That gap is where we're going to knit that stitch below. So we're going to knit in that gap, through that gap, and slide it off the needle. Now the next stitch is a purl bump, so we're going to just bring the yarn to the front and purl that stitch. Here's another knit stitch, so we're going to knit below, 1 below, and then a purl. So we're going to do that 2 stitch repeat, knit 1 below, and purl, knit 1 below, and purl, until we get to 3 stitches to the end, and then we're going to do those selvage stitches again. Here's that last knit 1 below, and now we've got 3 stitches left. So those are our selvage stitches. So this one you can see has the purl bump in front of it, so we're going to slip that one with the yarn in front. The next one is a knit stitch, so we're going to knit that one. And then the last one again with that purl bump, yarn in front, slip it. So those are the 3 salvaged edge stitches at the end. Okay, so that was row number 1. Let's flip it over for row number 2. And it's really basically the same concept, just in a little different order. So you can see now the first 3 salvage stitches here begins with a knit stitch, because it's a knit stitch here on the end. So we're going to knit that first stitch. Then we got a purl bump, so we're going to bring our yarn to the front and slip that purl. Bring the yarn back to the back for the next knit stitch. There's our 3 salvaged stitches for the edge. Now we'll go into the fisherman's rib stitch. Here's the bump, purl bump, so that means we're going to bring the yarn to the front and purl it like a regular purl stitch. Here's our V, so now we're going to knit 1 below again. So that little gap below the stitch, knit in that gap and purl the next stitch. Knit 1 below and purl. So same as row number 1, we're just doing it in the different opposite order. So let's do this till 3 stitches to the end, and we'll end with those 3 salvage stitches again. Right here are those 3 salvage stitches, and we're going to do the first stitch is a knit stitch, so knit, and then slip with the yarn in front and knit. So that is row 2. So now you're just going to repeat row 1 and 2 until however long you want your beautiful scarf to be. Isn't that just a beautiful stitch? I love this fisherman's rib stitch. It makes for such a squishy and plush ribbing. Now you may think, boy, this looks a lot like the brioche rib stitch. So if you want to know how to do the brioche rib stitch and what the differences and similarities are between the two, I have a video where I talk exactly about that. What's the differences and similarities between the fisherman's rib stitch and the brioche stitch? So I encourage you to watch that next, and I'll have a link up in the upper right hand corner. I'm ready to do the bind off, and I wanted to make sure I did a bind off that kept the look of the fisherman's rib, and it was also nice and stretchy, so I didn't have such a tight bind off at the bottom of my scarf. So here's how we're going to do this bind off. I finished my last row here, and now I'm going to bind off. Now for this particular scarf, I did a salvaged edge with 3 stitches on each end. So those stitches are not done with the fisherman's rib, but they're just done with a knit and a slip stitch, but I'm going to treat them like regular knit stitches for the sake of the bind off. So let's start by just knitting our first stitch. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do a yarn over, and then we're going to knit our second stitch. Even though this is a purl stitch, we're going to knit that stitch. And now we're going to take that slip or that yarn over that we did and pass it over the last stitch on our right needle. And we're going to take that first stitch that we knitted and pass that over the last stitch as well. All right, and now let's do that again. We're going to do a yarn over and knit this stitch. This is still our salvage stitches. We're going to knit that stitch. Now pass that yarn over our last stitch and that first knitted stitch over the last stitch. Okay, so now we're into the section of my scarf where I am doing the fisherman's rib. So this one is a purl stitch. We're going to treat the purl stitch as knit stitches. So we're going to knit the knit stitches. So we're going to do a yarn over first, or I'm sorry, knit the purl stitches. We're going to do yarn over first and then do a knit stitch for this purl stitch. Pass that yarn over the last stitch and the knit stitch over the last stitch. All right, now in the fisherman's rib stitch, if you recall, you are knitting in the stitch below on the knit stitches. So we're going to continue to work in that fashion even when we do the bind off. So after we do our yarn over, we're going to knit in that stitch below, just like you did with the regular fisherman's rib stitch. So let's knit in the stitch below, and that's going to keep that fisherman's rib look. And we'll pass that yarn over that stitch and the first stitch over that. And we'll just continue in that fashion. Yarn over, knit, pass it over the last stitch, and pass this one also over the last stitch. And yarn over, knit one below, pass over the last, and pass this one over the last. yarn over, knit, pass over, and pass over. So that's it. We're going to treat those knit stitches and then knit one below just like we did the Fisherman's. Treat the purl stitches like knit stitches and just do the yarn over in between time and you'll get a really nice stretchy bind off. I'll finish this and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Alright, I completed the bind off and look at how nice and stretchy that is, and it maintains the nice ribbing up to the edge as well. So a very beautiful stretchy bind off that you can use for your Fisherman's rib stitch. Hope you found this helpful. If so, please give me a thumbs like and don't forget to subscribe to receive weekly notifications of new videos all about knitting tips and techniques and new stitches. Thanks for watching everyone. Happy knitting.